You know, for the longest time, the conversation about AI has been framed as this epic battle, human versus machine. But honestly, that story is getting a little old. Today, we're going to move past that simple narrative and look at what's actually happening. The messy, complicated, and really fascinating partnership that's forming between people and AI. I just love this quote because it perfectly nails the reality of AI today. We all want to see AI as a silver bullet, right? This one magical thing that's going to solve all our problems. But here's the thing. Any good software architect or, hey, any werewolf will tell you that there are no silver bullets. AI is an incredibly powerful tool, for sure, but it's not magic. And to use it well, it requires a critical, very human touch. And this slide really breaks it down. On one side, you have all the hype. The crazy headlines screaming about autonomous machines taking over and the end of all jobs as we know it. But the reality? Well, it's a lot more nuanced. It's about a powerful tool that needs a human partner, which is leading to a major shift in our skills and how we work, not an outright replacement. All right, so here's the game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to tackle the human and skill challenge. Then, we'll get into the organizational playbook, how companies are trying to turn all this AI buzz into actual value. After that, we'll dig into the foundations of building trustworthy systems. And finally, we'll wrap it all up by talking about our role in this new AI era.
Okay, first up, the human element. This is where it gets personal for all of us. I mean, the big question on everyone's mind is pretty simple. When it comes to our jobs and even our own ability to think, is AI here to replace us or is it here to empower us?
At the very heart of all this anxiety is an idea that's actually been around for a long, long time. Technological unemployment. This was a term popularized by the economist John Maynard Keynes way back in the 1930s. It's this deep-seated fear that new technology could lead to a permanent drop in the number of jobs available. And let me tell you, the debate between the optimists and the pessimists on this has been raging for centuries. So what does the data actually tell us? Well, a huge OECD study found that, on average, only about 9% of jobs, that's it, just that little slice of the donut you see here, are at a high risk of being automated. Now, that's not nothing, but it is a long, long way from the end of all jobs story we hear so often. It suggests the real story isn't replacement, it's transformation. It's about automating specific tasks inside of our jobs.
Okay, so maybe our jobs aren't all going to disappear tomorrow, but that brings up a much subtler and maybe even trickier challenge. What is all of this doing to our brains? If we rely too much on AI, we can fall into a trap called cognitive offloading, where we basically just outsource our thinking and risk losing our own critical skills.
And education is the perfect place to see this in action. I mean, on the one hand, the risk is obvious. A student can just copy-paste a tough calculus problem into an AI, get the answer, and boom, no actual learning has happened. That's cognitive offloading. But on the other side, the opportunity is huge. AI can be a thinking partner that asks challenging questions, creates personalized learning paths, and gives real-time feedback to help students think more deeply. And the good news is, educators are already on this. They're developing strategies to make sure AI is used the right way. They're teaching AI literacy so students learn how to ask better questions. They're even setting up no AI brainstorming sessions to protect that initial spark of independent thought. The point is, they are actively building frameworks to make sure AI becomes a partner, not just a crutch.
So, that's the individual level. But what happens when you zoom out to a whole company? How do organizations take all this amazing potential and actually turn their AI experiments into real, measurable business value?
This chart from IBM tells a really interesting story. It shows that while 42% of big companies have actually deployed AI in some way, look at this, almost the exact same number, 40% are basically stuck. They're still just exploring, still in the pilot phase. It shows that making that leap from a cool experiment to something that actually drives the business is a really big hurdle. So why is it so tough? Well, the roadblocks are pretty much what you'd expect. We're talking about huge skills gaps, the insane complexity of managing data, and old legacy systems that just don't want to cooperate. And then you have to layer on all the serious ethical and compliance worries and top it all off with the million-dollar question, how do we even know if this stuff is working? How do we measure the ROI?
And that brings us right to the heart of the problem for any business leader. You know the old saying, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it? Well, in this brand new world of generative AI, where the outputs can be so creative and unpredictable, how on earth do you track success in a way that actually makes sense?
The answer is that businesses are writing a whole new playbook, one that breaks down success into 4 distinct layers. It starts at the bottom with model quality. Is the AI's output even accurate? Then you move up to system quality. Is the platform fast and reliable? From there, you have to connect it to business operations. Is it actually making things better, like reducing customer call times? And finally, you translate all of that into cold, hard cash with business value KPIs that show the real financial impact.
Which brings us to the foundation of everything we've talked about, trust. Because for AI to ever be a true partner, we have to be able to trust it. And that trust really stands on 2 main pillars: technical performance and legal clarity.
So pillar number 1 is just raw performance. I mean, it's one thing for an AI to summarize an email. It's a completely different thing for it to solve truly complex, brand new problems with the kind of reliability you need for, say, a high-stakes business decision. That's a huge technical mountain to climb.
To figure this out, researchers are basically throwing these AI models into the deep end. They're testing them on problems from intense competitive programming contests. These aren't simple coding exercises. They require serious logic and efficiency. And the results show that while the models are improving, their performance tanks when they see a problem they haven't been trained on before, which really highlights their limits when it comes to generalizing.
Now, the second pillar of trust is a whole different beast, the legal side of things. The very foundation of modern AI, these massive data sets they're trained on, has created a legal minefield, especially around things like copyright and intellectual property. And right now, it's a huge unresolved mess.
A big piece of this debate comes down to something called GPL propagation theory. The basic idea is this: if an AI is trained on open source code that has a share-alike license, does the AI model itself now have to be open source? Think of it like this. If you bake a cake and you use one special ingredient that has a rule saying you have to share this freely, does that mean your entire cake now has to be given away for free? For companies building proprietary AI, the implications are massive.
And look, this isn't some abstract legal debate. This is happening in courtrooms as we speak. You've got cases like Doe versus GitHub, where the claim is that open source licenses were just ignored during training. Over in Germany, another case is exploring whether an AI model simply remembering copyrighted work is a form of illegal reproduction. The key thing to understand is that these are wide open legal questions, and the answers could completely reshape the AI industry.
So, after looking at the personal, the organizational, the technical, and the legal challenges, let's bring it all home. What's our role in all of this? The answer really comes down to a shift in our mindset. We have to go from being passive users to becoming active partners with this technology.
If there is one single idea that weaves through every single thing we've talked about today, it's this: the absolute necessity of keeping a human in the loop. This is the core takeaway. Responsible, ethical, and truly effective AI all depends on us staying involved in the process.
And this isn't just a vague idea. You can see it happening in the real world right now. In the business world, audit committees are starting to ask executives, so how exactly are humans validating the outcomes of these AI systems? In education, students are learning to verify what the AI tells them and reflect on their own thinking. And in software, the best architects use AI like a sparring partner, someone to bounce ideas off of, not a black box that replaces their own judgment.
So, in the end, we're kind of back where we started. AI is a tool. An incredibly powerful tool, yes, but it is not a silver bullet. And because of that, the most important question isn't really about the technology. It's not, what can AI do? The truly critical question is about us. What will we, as its essential human partners, choose to build with it?